Soccer Mom Sunday. Good morning. Good morning, JB.
Morning. How's it going?
Good. I beveraged up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a little bit of a scratchy throat. I'm not sick, but I got a little bit of scratchy throat from walking in the nice weather that we've had at the time of recording, and I figure a cider will fix all that.
So
I'm going to pretend like it has honey in it, and I'm just going to drink it.
So if you put the Marlboro Reds away when you go for your walk, your scratchy voice would be much
Just don't
better.
breathe around trees.
Yeah.
I just took allergy testing, by the way, because they're like, oh, so good. And I'm like, I don't have allergies. They're like, they came back, they're like, you're allergic to the outside. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Don't go outside. Which
Yeah,
worked out for winter.
It's, I love and respect science for what it does, but at the same time, sometimes it's like, seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
To your point.
So you might want to disinfect this microphone or just give it to Jared.
Yeah, well,
He sounds scratchy.
Yeah, no, he'll last through the Armageddon. Yeah, he's fine.
Is that cockroach?
Yes. Do you remember this song? Remember this one? This is a Xer song.
I remember it. I don't remember it being overplayed. You remember you can't get some of those songs out of your head because they were played like every hour on the hour?
This was more the Sunday night.
Who is this, by the way? What?
I selected on purpose. The song is called Under the Milky Way. You remember that. The band, though, is The Church.
Oh.
And since it's Soccer Mom Sunday, and we don't
I love
really
how you have
go.
the
You see what I did there?
We go to soccer church.
Yes.
The Church of the Beautiful Game.
I remember as a kid, I was probably, 11, 12 or so. We had a neighbor who went to church every Sunday and Wednesday. And one day they were like, so
Extra
what church do you guys go to? And they were pulling down the street, and me and my brothers were out in the street, and we're like, what's that?
What?
It's what you do on Sundays, what they said. And we're like, we play soccer.
That's our church.
We're going to the Elks Fields. I don't know what you're doing.
Church outside.
Yeah, so I figured we'd throw a little church in on this Sunday.
What's new in
episode.
JB world and Soccer Dad world?
It's kind of become this self-sustaining beast to a degree. We recently, over the past 30 days or so, we've had Ty Keogh. We had Pat McBride on that made everybody cry.
You can't. Oh my God.
Did you
Yes.
see that slow-mo piece?
Yes, and just to hear the catch in his voice, and I'm just like, oh my God.
I edited that. Like the catch, the pause was 5 times longer.
Really?
Yes, he said. It took him a minute to catch his breath.
I just want to have him over on this side of it just because he's Pat McBride, and I only got to interview him for. You get 4 minutes at halftime on a City game, right? So if you do halftime and you have a halftime guest, you got 4 minutes. That is it. And that is not enough time to talk to Pat McBride.
No.
The sweetest man ever.
No, I'm going to put him up there. Like, when you have guests and you go through these conversations, you don't rank them, but you inadvertently or off the record rank them personally. Right. And from a human standpoint, like where you're measuring not only you were really good at what you did, but you look at their character and you look at how they approach them, the game and the people that they coached, etc. A heavyweight bout would be Pat McBride and Al Trost.
Oh,
the way those two carry themselves, and they're just, it's impossible to not excessively like them.
Yeah, and I'm going to early introduce our guest on because I'm getting vigorous nods from Laurie Kaminski, who's our guest on, and she's like, what it gives is like, you cannot stop nodding about Pat McBride.
I mean, everybody went to a soccer camp as kids at some point, and there was a reason everybody gravitated
because my parents didn't have them. They couldn't send me to camps, but I remember seeing flyers on them.
Yeah, I mean, I was little, and it was like you went between him, Denny Vanager. I mean, that's how you learn to love the sport, is by guys like that and being around people like that.
But as soon as Pat McBride's name came up, you were like, absolutely, here we go.
Legend.
Yes.
Legend. You don't top it.
It is one of those things. I mean, we say it ad nauseum, and a lot of our listeners tend to be like, okay, we get it. But I don't think they really get it when you think about St. Louis and its relationship to the game, and then you look at the pillars, those individuals that if there were a Mount Rushmore, and you go down the list, and you can debate all you want, everybody will debate whether it's a North Sider or a South Sider or whatever, But there are certain names like Pat McBride that's like, it's a first ballot Hall of Famer, right?
Right.
They're definitely going up there. And the funny thing to me, and again, I'm going to go back to what I was talking about when you asked me about it, the impressive part is not the soccer accolades. It's not, he's in the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame. He's one of, 2 living members, St. Louis members, and his statistics are off the charts. But when you sit down with him, you're like, I just like you.
Yes. That's
and
Go
that's
back to your church comment, right? That it was going to church. You learn lots of things in church.
Yeah.
Learn how to be a good human.
Yeah. And not only that, I remember when he came to the booth, they kind of bring, somebody kind of has to usher him in quick. And at first glance, I'm like, that's not, I wouldn't have picked him out because he's so unassuming. He was thanking me. And I was like, no, I thank you. Thank you for your time. He's like, thank you for having me here. I'm like, no, we had like a battle of thank yous. I'm like, oh my God. Like once we got done and Joey and Dale came back on, like I tossed my headset down to run out into the hallway. And I was like, I'm just so excited to meet you. And he gave me a hug. And I'm like, oh, I should have been coached by him at some point. Damn it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. The gift that St. Louis has when it comes to the game is it's really built, clearly off of people. And when you have individuals like that, and, and you mentioned a few other names that absolutely are in that category, it's like, it's not that we're spoiled, we're just lucky, and those kind of that type of character. What I'm seeing now through our process, not only on this show in speaking to individuals like yourself, but on the men's side, like this has become a generational habit. Like there's next gen of those kind of character people that are running the show. Yeah.
It's roots and it's what you're brought up with. I think back to even, my father, my grandfather, that's where I learned to love it and get into it. And then you have mentors along the way that help foster that, and you learn a little bit from everybody. And whether it's soccer, whether it's life, there's things you're going to learn, you're not going to learn.
And there's a tie, there's a consistent tie, right? So whether you hear Vader's name, you hear McBride, you hear champions who ran camps, like champ camps, as Nikki Thole our previous episode talked about, and they touched everybody in the game, meaning boys and girls. They ran camps for both sides of it, so you legit could have them on either side of our podcast, JB, and there will be a host of people that are nodding their heads, going, "Yeah, I either went to the camp or I was, affected by this person in this way." They cross all the zones,
you
right?
look at the Super Bowl coming up, right? You learn about the Andy Reid coaching tree. You just mentioned the champions. You mentioned, Mr. Trost, McBride. Those are all people that have their trees and all these people that branch off. And it happens for a reason. It's not just by mistake.
Yeah, it's like Rensings. You go to Gary, the patriarch, and U.S. national team, and all these incredible accolades, and then he's got all 3 sons coaching Michigan State and at Charlotte and out in, I believe, Phoenix, and it's just it almost becomes this weird redundancy. Yeah. That's like, well, okay, what's new about that? Well, every time, what makes it new is the human story, the human element, and what makes them who they are. Which brings me to a question for you, Laurie. Mehlville, you're a Southsider.
I am a Southsider.
Laurie Ski. So I want to call out real quick. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you a little bit, JB.
Oh, no, you do you.
Real quick, because I want to call some BS in a nice way on Nikki Thole, right? So we're actually recording this on the same day. So they'll drop on different Sundays, but we had Nikki Thole as re-recorded, who is ridiculously humble, and they Ski as she comes, so you can see the soccer terms coming in. Laurie Kaminski walks in, an immediate Ski. Nick gets up, they go hug, and it was just, I made him take a picture because it was so cute. And you're immediately calling BS. You're like, what did you tell me? She's a freak athlete. She's a freak
always
athlete.
Been amazing.
Well, I think the first thing I heard you say, because I was eavesdropping, you said that, and then you're like, she's badass.
She's badass.
And I'm like,
I'll tell everybody.
It was really hard to get her to admit that, and you were like, ridiculous. She's ridiculous. A freak athlete, and you mean that just good at everything, right?
Whether it's kayaking, we played dodgeball tournaments at one point in our life, kickball, probably would be pickleball coming up. That's the rage right now. But you name it, Nikki's done it and been really, really darn good at it, and she won't tell you that. But I think a lot of people like her that are really good at things, they don't want to say that.
No,
Yeah,
no,
so I'm just
it's-
calling little B. Thank you, Nikki, for being on the show, and you are a lot better than you let on, because I've got one here telling
Yeah.
us that's true.
Yeah. Now, if you want to believe me, I don't know. I mean, that might be questionable too.
See, here we go. Look at that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
let's go ahead and go there.
When I get Sean McAteer on here, I'm going to have her call BS on you.
Yeah. Deal.
Let's just dig into the roots. You're a Southsider. You
Southsider.
Obviously, you played at SLU. You coached beyond. You incredible career. Let's get to the roots. Did you grow up in a soccer house first off? And what did the early days look like for you as a player?
So early on, I mentioned my dad. I mentioned my grandfather. So Polish heritage, Kaminski, that's where ski comes from. If I would list all the names in my family, you'd be like, yeah, ski fits. So side note, that came from, I'm going to name drop another person that was very important in my life and still is, but Chris Werstein, who was the head coach at Mehlville for many, many years. Old school mentality and just somebody that teaches you a lot of life lessons while also teaching you soccer. And so, it was from my dad. And then they were involved, my dad and my grandfather, with PNA, which is Polish National Alliance, which was a very, pretty big men's program for a long time.
Oh, wow. I don't know about
If you hear about Spanish Society, they would play all down at Crown Elect Park and all over the place.
How I know about it, I didn't know about it growing up here, but I moved post-college. I lived in Chicago for a long time.
Yeah.
And we would play in the Montrose leagues, etc.
Yep.
And the PNA teams would, I didn't know anybody, but I knew they were from St. Louis. And that was
it's a lot of extension of whether it's cousins, my uncle, and down the line, right? Or people that I just think were cousins or aunts and uncles, but that whether we were related or not, we were. But yeah, so kind of started there, and I'll mention Top Hat Fields, which are right down off of Lee May Ferry, turning into Jeffco and Arnold, and there's a little field down in the hole there. I mean, I remember being a kid, spending time there. What was I watching? I don't know. I was watching soccer, but I don't know what kind of soccer. It was soccer. And then, life goes on and get more involved with, I think it started CYC and then started playing club, which, as we all know,
Who is your
the club
CYC,
scene.
out of curiosity?
Mary Mother.
Mary Mother.
Mary Mother.
Okay.
I remember a story. Now, here's story time, whether anybody cares or not, but many years ago, you didn't have to wear shin guards. And I was a little kid. I didn't want to wear shin guards. It wasn't cool to wear shin guards. And I kept getting kicked. I was probably like 6 or 7. I kept getting kicked. Eventually, I went down, and my dad was coaching, and my mom's upset, on the sideline, and she wanted to come on and help me out, help her baby out. My dad's like, "Get her off the field. She doesn't belong on there." And I was like 6 or 7, so that's kind of where it started. Serious.
Get
her some shin guards on.
Yeah.
Just spit on it.
Get up. He came out and get up. Well, of course I had to get up. My dad told me to get up, so you get up and you go on. But
what was the early club?
White Star, if you remember White Star.
Okay, remind me of. I think you were a little bit younger. So when White Star played, when Jackie Billett was on it, there was a female coach, and it's made a big impact on me.
I'm
looking it up.
I'm not
I
sure.
said last episode, I can't. Oh my God.
We can text Billett and see if she can,
I'll
be a
tell.
phone a
But
friend.
So White Star continued for a while. I know it's no longer in existence, but it was that kind of that little club that always had good teams.
That we always had to try and beat JB Marine, and it was every year JB Marine and White Star. Our team was made up of a lot of really good athletes.
Yeah.
A lot of our team went on to play Division I softball, or I think there was even a basketball player maybe in there, and soccer as well. But we all know the club landscape has changed over the years, and how that is
just a little bit.
Operated, and with multiple sports. It's changed. I'll just say that. But
Oh no, we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah.
But we'll stay on
I'm not
time.
getting out of it, huh?
No.
So, early days Southside, you're playing on White Star. You guys are knocking heads with JB Marine. Was your high school path early? Did you know you were going to go to Mehlville? Were you considering other, private schools for soccer, or was it just not in the family cards? What landed? Why Mehlville? And talk about that experience.
Well, I was always a public school kid. Grew up Catholic, but I was a public school kid, and as I got closer to high school, it was like friends from the club teams were thinking about going to different high schools, private schools, and there was Koryezu was mentioned, and Notre Dame was close, and then it was like, well, if you go to Mehlville, there's a better chance you could have a car when you turn 16 and you drive, and I was like, well, duh, that's a no-brainer, and happy it worked out that way. That's how I got to eventually get to play against Nikki Thole, bring her name back up, where she was at Lindbergh or was at Southside. I used to play against her that way, and I was like, man, here we go. And then years later, after college, we all started playing together. And
Scrubs. On the Scrubs
did
team.
Did Nikki bring that up too?
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
And after, of course, when we were off microphone, she brought up all the good stuff. But there were two of us, right? There were two old lady teams. And I say this because when you're not on the old lady team, but then you still have to play them in the Budweiser Premier League.
Hold on. Define old lady.
Okay, well, for if you're a college student, it's anybody older than you, right?
So
when you're in a
22 plus.
yeah, probably 25 plus. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean
30. I think when we got over 30.
We always called you guys the over 30s, even though we were like, probably 24, 23 at the time.
Yes, you were annoying to play because you were, but you guys had aged out of the college. But
Correct.
So it was funny when we started. When I was in college still, and you'd play on the Budweiser Premier League, Sean and her team would always be in there. I was like, oh, and then you'd think this is going to be an easy win, and then it wasn't an easy win because they're good. They didn't have quite as many runs in them, but they were much smarter players than we probably used to be when we were young. Then you age out, and I hit 30. I remember I got on Sean's team, Patty Kelly's team, as you know.
Yep.
And then there was there's this other older team, and it was the Scrubs. And we were you were almost harder to play than it was the younger college teams because they played stupid. Like they had their young athleticism.
I love this is one thing that we haven't talked about on the show yet, really on either side of the fence, Soccer Dad or here. The whole concept and how you define post-college or post-quote pro soccer, like on the men's side, guys, anything outside of college was open. You wanted to call it, look, we're just going to play open because you had so much, dumb ego that you didn't call it old man league until 50. Over 50 was like, oh, okay, that's old.
Okay.
Because we're just all denying
this is
the
why
reality.
that gender is delusional.
We're complete, but that's...
I'm going to continue to call it open now. I'm going to change the vocabulary
we're not quick. Because the bodies were falling apart way quicker than that.
But you guys playing, and I remember we would play, it was like, playing almost the team that was Rockhurst, they would come back to St. Louis, all the St. Louis players that were Rockhurst. We beat them, by the way, so you know.
You mean the Kansas City IV?
That's right. We won.
St. Louis players that
bringing that up still, yeah.
The girl on my sideline who was like, "Are you guys like a college team?" I'm like, no, we're all over 30, and she's like, oh, I think my mom's around your age. And I'm like, and now I'm going to have to kick your ass. And then I'll have to go out because I don't have enough in me.
Oh, yeah? Does your mom have a right hook?
Yeah. But it was great. Like, we were just like, we just beat a college team. But then you guys would come along. And we actually, our teams had a great relationship.
Always, yep.
But it was just like, we knew it was a battle. It was a battle because we're all close to the same place in our body functioning. Mm-hmm. And we all needed to play smarter. And damn it, when Laurie, when you got that damn ball, that's why I thought of you. I remember thinking of, who do I want to have more guests? Okay, who annoyed me as a player? Kaminski. And then when I played with you, I was like, I love her. She's awesome. But then when you get the ball, I couldn't ever get off your stupid feet. I was like, in a foot race, I thought I could beat you.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
There's no chance.
But
no
damn
doubt
it,
about
when
that.
the ball was at her feet, I don't know if she put it in a portal because I could never find it on your feet.
This is
shit.
This is all very top of mind because the MITRE tournament was just last weekend. And, if I hold up my arm, you can see.
There you go.
And I'm like, all right, I'm getting into my 40s here. And I want to play. I don't want to be the worst player out there.
If that bruise lasts more than 5 days, it's time.
We're not 5 days yet. So it's Sunday, so it happened Sunday, so I still got a few more days for it to clear up. But, it's very top of mind considering the time frame of that happening.
Well,
and I still
right.
get to chase Shawnee around the field on Tuesday nights sometimes. I tell her, stop running so much.
I keep asking her to play again, and she does not call me. So I'll play on your. Do I play your team?
Deal.
Okay,
Well,
let's go.
Let's go back. Let's continue to like tie in the.
Yeah, sorry.
the
Okay,
time.
yeah, now here we go.
I have a
No,
very
that's fine.
ADD, be all over the
Oh
place.
no, we all do. So it's all good. Mehlville, you're playing in Mehlville. You're competing. Obviously, you were talking about playing against Toll. There was obviously a lot of other good teams, women's teams at that
Tons.
time. I mean, there's good teams every year in the high school ranks here. How competitive? Well, let me back up. Did you know when you were playing, like, okay, I'm into this. I know I'm good at this. I love the game. In high school, at what point did you realize, or did you plan to continue to the next level?
That's a great question. I think that, women's soccer has grown over the years. I mean, big time, right, in this area. But I think we have to remember it's been rooted here for a long time. You look at programs like UMSL that have been around for a number of years prior to the boom, I'll say. Lindenwood's been around for many years. And we also have to remember the timeline of, like, college was starting to be the thing. That's when you graduate, you went to college. It wasn't just go get a job. So
Right.
it kind of was more ingrained that, all right, yeah, this is what I get to do. I get to go to college. And it was an exciting thought. And I don't think it was really anything like, nothing like it is today. It was, if I get an opportunity to go do this, I want to keep doing it because it's what I grew up on. It's all I knew was, you play soccer or you play sports.
So
you
then
stay involved.
let's talk about that senior year. You're going to go play at the next level. You're planning on it. What were the offers? What was that process? How did you know?
I think this is going to be the same as Nikki.
It might be real simple. I mean, my senior year, I actually really battled injuries, so I was never really 100% my senior year. And the timelines have changed, and when people commit and the whole process.
Right.
And you guys are probably going to laugh, and this is probably very naive of me to say, but I remember being a kid going to eat dinner as a family at Racino's, which is right down from SLU, and I don't know if it was like seeing the lights going past the college just as a kid in a memory. I just always said that's where I wanted to go to school.
Wow.
So, I mean, really, really a simple answer, and that's where I just wanted to go. And there was not really a whole lot of thought outside of that,
Did you
whether I
have
was going to be able to play or not.
Did you have offers from other schools?
Here and there. I mean, I had a couple offers to play if I wanted to play softball, a couple, some if I wanted to play soccer. It wasn't as competitive maybe as maybe it is now for kids, but I just knew that's where I wanted to go. So Tim had a pretty easy.
So champs,
Yeah, he had a pretty easy.
He had 2 years at Lindenwood with me, and then he moved over to SLU.
Yep.
So I figured it had to be Champs that was your coach.
Yeah, it was Champs.
Yeah.
And then that's how I ended up at Lindenwood, honestly, was, you go through, you do your career, and I was like, I don't want a real job. What am I going to do?
Horrible idea.
I don't want a real job. I'm still having fun with this. And then
I like this game.
Yeah,
I just finished college.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want a real job.
Yeah, and then, I say that respectfully because it is a very, very difficult profession to be in and stay in, whether you're at the club
You got
level
into literally
or the
maybe
college
one of the
level.
hardest jobs, coaching. Right.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I think I mentioned to you before the show even started. I was just really lucky, and the timing was there. A lot of hard work, but the timing was right, and it is really what it came
15
down
years
to.
at Lindenwood. I mean, that's a long.
Yeah.
They put it when you retired from
Yep.
Lindenwood and left
Yep.
Lindenwood to go do other things, and
Yep.
and it calls out that you're the longest reigning coach at Lindenwood.
I mean, that's pretty cool. When you
Right?
say it that way, I never
You're like,
really
no wonder
thought of
I was
it.
tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
I'm
you
like, I
mentioned
think I have
you
some
also
gray hairs in here
You were
because of
assistant
it.
coaching softball, which that's a lot.
It was a lot. I mean, things were different. I was an assistant softball coach. I was the head soccer coach, and I was, working in admissions and painting curbs and wearing lots of different hats. And, you laugh, but that's what it was. I mean, there was a lot of grassroots. Just had to work hard and fill your day. And boy, did I fill some days. But it taught me a lot, and it was a really big experience and helped me, translate to maybe a little bit of success now in what I do and not having to work nights and weekends. And
So bring me back to when you came on to Lindenwood, because my memories, I can't even find my way around the campus, right? Things don't look the same. But when you came in, was it fully what it is today, or was it still being built up?
It was still being built up. There were still trailers on
the
campus.
trailer,
I know
the
if I say
men's
that.
trailer park was there.
That was there.
That's a thing, and usually it was the men's soccer team who largely took that up.
And so there was that, but that was kind of like the tail end of it. And I'm trying to think back. That was fall of 2003 when I started out there. And probably within the next 2 to 3 years is when all that was phased out.
Wow.
And they started putting up new dorms.
So you're coaching now with it growing into what it is today.
Yes. And even today it's expanded more than what it was when I was, they've made another league jump and different endeavors there. So
What'd you think about that, by the way, when they all of a sudden are like, boom, NCAA Division I?
I mean, there's a lot of pressure there. That's all I'll say.
I
and
can
that's
imagine.
It changes the course of people's lives, I would say, for various reasons. I won't comment too much on that.
Yeah, no.
I know they weren't quite, at least on the soccer side, because I did talk with Carl Hutter and
Good old Carl, yeah. It's another
Carl's
guy.
been there
It's another
forever,
guy
right?
that like he's my crazy uncle. That can still try and get a hold of or call and
And he'll stand on a table and yell at you.
Yeah. I got to page him in order to get him to call me back.
He still has a page.
No, but that's
He's
just
got a
reason.
Motorola.
Yeah.
It's got a hit button.
No.
I
God
talked
love
with
Carl.
the coaches a
Learned
couple
a lot.
years ago when I was designing Mind to Define for the mindset, because I just thought, what would be good things to focus on as you're, coming in. And I remember them just kind of mentioning, because I was like, whoa, you guys are D1. And they're like, yeah, that's interesting when you're recruiting they were already basically finished the recruiting for the level they were at. And now, poof. You're really not, you haven't recruited D1 players and you're going to go play D1.
Yep.
Whoa, you talk about a challenge for coaches and players. Holy cow.
Everybody combined, and some of the rules and different things you look at, and are you set up for success all the way around, and how do you make each player successful? I mean, it's a lot to handle and overtake, and
Well, let's go back to maybe.
You're like, and I'm glad I'm gone.
sorry, JB. I keep going down.
No,
a path,
I'm here to
He'll bring
rein
you back.
guys.
He'll
I'm
do
gonna
it. He
rein-
does it with me too.
You need to follow me around every day. I think
Jen's the
too.
one like squirrel.
Yeah.
She's out there.
I was like, wait.
Now you got
'Cause
two
I'll
of us, so
forget.
look out.
Well, I'm really curious about your process as a coach. With recruiting. Let's talk about recruiting for a bit. Growing up here with the game, you see the best. You've seen the best. You played with the best. Within the Midwest for a long time. So as a coach, and you're wanting to build a program, and you're wanting to kind of replicate what you know, talk about your recruiting process. What did that look like? Where were you going? What were you looking for? Just generically recruiting.
I mean, you look for good humans, right? But I had to learn a lot on the fly. I mean, you talk about champs, Tim and Tom. They helped me learn that because
Telling
Carl,
me to move your ass in stereo.
and Carl, I mean, like you it's not something as a player you play, right? You go and you play, and you're like, oh, okay, I like playing with these types of players. But you don't have that experience to see a big picture approach of how it's all going to come together. You look for certain qualities.
How did you balance, though, because all programs have, quote, a style when it comes to technical, tactical.
Yep.
Lindenwood inevitably would have had a style. How did you, with a new expectation, because it's one thing to coach club or rec or any other level. When you're coaching at the collegiate level, there's an AD expecting you to win and perform. So you have a style, but then you're talking about the recruiting process. You're looking for character. How did you manage to balance that? Because sometimes you can see the style in a player. Maybe you're not a big fan of the character, but you're like, they might give me 12 goals.
That's the ultimate question, right? But I mean, early on, it was learning a lot as I went because, the first couple of years I was Tom's assistant, and Tom had the experience, so he helped guide me, and Carl as well. I'm going to back up even further with Tom coming in. The team, you don't just you can't eliminate a whole team, right? Like you inherit certain players, and at the time when I first started, it was very much a learning experience for me. A lot of the team were international players, and they were phenomenal players, but how do you learn to communicate, and how do you learn to understand where they're coming from, not only from their cultural aspect, but also as players, you come in and it's a whole brand new ball game.
Wow.
Which is, they didn't always play the same as maybe, the South Siders or the North Siders, or what you were used to being around as a player. So it took a lot of time to kind of, morph things together.
Wow.
Where there was many players that were older than I was. I had just graduated from SLU, and then I start in the fall, and some of them, with it being an NAIA school, and some of the compliance things were not the same as at the NCAA level.
No, it was the wild west.
I mean, and so you have to take all those things into account, and how do all the pieces start coming together. So I mean, I had to really learn, what are things that were important to me, and I think at the end of the day, and this is maybe for everybody out there too, there's a school for everybody, and there's a place for everybody. But the hard part is, what is that right school, and what is that right style? And as time goes on, you try and find the players that work hard, that have some athleticism around them, and you have to keep in mind, what kind of recruiting dollars, what kind of scholarship money can you offer? What are their grades? There's a whole lot that you have to look at, not just what they do on the field. If we like to play, GM, but you're looking at much more than just what their on-field stuff is.
That reminds me of when Tim came in, when Debbie Washburn had her 2 years she had more years than that, but 2 years with me. Yeah. It was the first time in my entire career playing that I had ever known about building the ball out of the back, right? Like, no, I was on kick and run teams. I was good at it because I was fast, right? Yeah. So you put the ball in front, and here we go. I'll go get it.
They call it direct now, Jen, right?
So direct, quote, direct. But yeah, I go get the ball. And so it was actually probably the most excruciating time for me to learn. And I was targeting forward, which means I had to work back for the ball. I'm like, what are you doing? Why am I going backwards? This is weird. Just send me in.
Right.
But our keepers very rarely punted. Very rarely, because Debbie was very much like, I want 100% possession. 100% if it's at your feet, for the most part. And then Tim comes along, and I asked him, I remember asking him at one point in time, so how come we didn't stay with the same style? He's like, because I didn't think you guys were that good at that style. One, by the way, we went to the national tournament. Right. We did pretty good. And he also talked about inheriting players. And while at the same time, he brought on Duco, I think, it was a part of that a little bit.
Tammy
Duco, and some others.
Grand City.
There you go. But what other players that, ironically, it worked because you could see the kind of players Tim brought in were a little bit different than what was there. Worked out for me because his style ended up being what I wanted anyway.
Right.
But I see that now, looking at through his lens, and now yours is, how do you work with what's there, but also, there's a way you want to play, maybe.
Yep. Some people are just more comfortable coaching a certain style, but at the end of the day, if you want to be successful, you got to find a ways to make your players successful and your team successful.
Well,
right?
Let's get into maybe a talking point for the young player that's sitting in the back seat wondering, why, Mom, are you playing this podcast?
Yeah, why do I have to listen to these old ladies talk about when they were playing soccer many years ago, right? Yeah.
But talk to some of the non-soccer metrics that you, as a head coach in your day, from a recruiting perspective, how important are they? And, how can players put those more up front to add value in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's something real. Maybe this sounds very blunt, but nobody wants to be around a jerk, do they? I mean, and so what defines a jerk? How does the player respond to bad calls on the field? To the referee, are they whining? Are they complaining? Are they pointing?
It's body language.
The body language, you can read it. How do they treat their teammates who maybe aren't as good as they are? What are they doing? Are they trying to guide and assist, or are they just what are they doing, right? And then how are they treating their coach? Maybe they're playing a wing midfield and they really want to be the forward, but are they pouting or are they running up and down the field like a bat out of hell and trying to prove themselves? So
can I make an assumption and put words in your mouth
Sure.
and say that it's true what we hear, that and even what many times club or high school coaches will tell the kids, that there's so many kids that play now and so many people that college coaches can afford to be picky.
Yep.
And many times will sometimes say, okay, I'll take this person that has slightly less skill but great attitude, all that good soft skill stuff,
Right.
over the maybe stud who I don't want to have in the locker room. I don't
Right.
want to have on the bench. I don't want to have on the field.
Yep. I think it's balancing it all out.
Wow.
You might be able to have one of those, two of those, but you can't have 23 players like that. You got to have some culture and camaraderie in the locker room. If they score 20 goals a year, you might find ways to, deal with it
Yeah.
a little bit more. But that's a diamond. That's not an everyday thing.
Yeah.
So,
One thing,
Role
another
players win games.
Yeah, and another thing a college coach told me was, I asked, because I was just like, what are you looking for when it comes to, besides the skilling and the drilling, right? Like,
Right.
You can get that anywhere now. With all due respect, you can get that anywhere. And the one said to me, I'm interested in players who are willing to play their role. So it's like a lot of times we'll get somebody who was the stud of their high school or a stud of their club team, and they play a certain, they're the 6 or the 9 or the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're coming into my team, I already have a couple of 6s and a couple of 9s. Are you willing to play another role? Is that important too? Is that right?
I think so. I mean, I've been out of it, 6 or 7 years now, so things change quickly. But I think certain principles are always going to apply. That you got to work hard and you got to earn it, right?
I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. I've been out of the game 6 years. Whatever.
You're always in the game. You still play Sean.
We are all still in the game. And I want to ask your opinion on...
But let's talk about, though, think about all those same, things that you have to learn to fail, right? People have to learn to fail, and how do you respond to it?
Well, what I want to ask you is the other side of that coin. Yes, I agree. I mean, we all remember that loss, because that's what you learn from. But I want to ask your opinion on competition and finding players, kids that know how to win. How did you, as a coach, what were you looking for in a player, that would give you that? Because that's something that you can't. There is no Webster entry, but we all know what it is. It's that player that knows how to win.
And how do you define that? And how do you see that, right? That's the hard part. That's the magic question. And it's hard to see because you may only see a player for, a fraction of a game. If you're out at a showcase, and you've got a list of people you have to get to.
Well,
right?
let's go this way. I'll give you.
I'm not giving you enough. I know.
No,
come on.
no. I'm gonna get more out of you.
I'm just gonna go order another drink.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah.
No, real quick though, because one of the guests that we talked to on the Soccer Dad Pod side, that I happened to play against back in the day, that would define exactly what I'm asking you. Mike Slavinsky, Slavo was his name. He was just one of those guys that you knew that if he was walking around the field, you're like, fuck.
That was when I looked at Ski. I was like, damn it, she's on this game.
That guy knew how to win. It did not matter.
Yeah.
So you've been out of it 6 years now, so almost 7 years?
Yes.
Let's name drop. Who's that one player that you had in all those years?
Oh, no.
That if
Don't make me do this.
You got 5 minutes left in the game.
Did you have to give a name, or did you give
No, I want a
personality?
name.
Oh, okay.
No, because it's
All right.
because it was a human. It was a player.
Jen Siess
Who's the
was
one?
her name. No, it was not.
Who's the one that you go back to that embodies this player will win me this game?
Well, that's a hard one because there's been I've been around some really great players.
Does it have to be when she's coaching or when she was playing at SLU too?
Either. Because I think I find it. I love this subject matter because it's like you can't. There is no science experiment that can cut these people in half and figure out what makes that work. But who are they?
It's funny because in what I'm doing now, my manager, my boss says you go off your gut a lot. I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of you watch body language. You like people that never give up and just keep going, and they find a way. That's what it is to me. And how do I translate that? I guess I'm not doing a very good job of putting it into words. But it's just somebody that, they have that killer instinct in their eyes, and you just know.
Desert island,
Yeah.
who goes with you?
I'm not answering it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not
Go
going to
ahead,
make
Jen.
everybody mad.
Okay,
No.
so let me do this. So it doesn't even have to be a name, but let's give me some traits of when you recruited a person that fit.
Yeah.
Like you were like, yes, like I
Yeah.
am so glad I got this person. She's a great fit for this team. Whether it's on the pitch or
athleticism, hard nose. You got to be able to make some decisions with the ball. But at the end of the day, I guess maybe I wanted to recruit things I didn't always have either. I mean, I was never fast. I was never going to beat anybody, in a foot race, as you mentioned. So
I did not say that.
But you got to also think about, how you need a little bit of everything. You need somebody that can see the field, but you need somebody that if there's a ball in the air, by God, they're going to win it.
Well, and the reason I'm pushing this point,
Killer instinct is basically what you're talking
it's really
about, right?
what it is.
Yeah,
Comes
because
down to
so many kids.
it's a competitive edge.
Yeah.
And again, parents are listening to this, and there will be some kids that listen because I want to hammer home the point that these, special tricks and videos and
It's not that. It's consistency. It's working hard every day.
That's where I'm going.
And I'll tell people I'm a sore loser. I'm a terrible loser. If I know I don't have a chance to win, well, probably I don't want to play because you're going to see a bad side of me.
Well,
and I'm pretty calm and laid back, So
I joke like if I see a kid lose in a checkers match and throw a soda, that's the kid I want on my team.
yeah.
Like-
Yeah.
Because you can't teach that.
You can't teach it, and it's certain things you can't teach aggressiveness. I mean, you can't teach
So Nikki
somebody
Thole.
to
We're
go,
talking about Nikki Thole, right?
You can't teach somebody that there's gonna, there's a 50-50 ball. You can't teach somebody to go win it. It's either in them or it's not.
How frustrating do you guys get? Because Jen, you've been a coach too. I'm going to interview two of you on this question. When you see kids that do the math in their head, you talk about a 50-50 ball.
Yep.
Players that just get it, it's not a 50-50 ball. It's their ball, no matter what the
it's
distance is.
100% their ball.
Yeah.
So
There's just somebody in my way of it.
Yeah. Yes. It's that mental edge too, right?
How does it make you feel though when you see the kids do the math? Like, oh, I'm not going to get to it. And how do you talk?
yeah.
You can read it. I mean, you can read it on the
can
field.
see it.
There's
You
a
can see
there's a
it, yeah.
slight step back in their posture. They have figured out now. That's not always there's a cerebral. I think there's a place for a cerebral player. So I've coached. I was a cerebral player. But my oldest son is one of those. Like he's not. I wish he was. He wasn't the kind of guy to step into every 50-50. But he would calculate if you weren't gonna like a bad touch off you.
Yeah, I
So
got it. Yeah.
There's a piece of that too where I just knew. It was frustrating because I was like, oh, he's just not stepping two. But damn, he'd read that second ball.
Yep.
He'd read the second touch. And I'm like,
second
all
ball
right.
sometimes just as important as the first one.
So I don't know if that fits your question, but that's kind of what I was.
No, I think it's really important for people to hear these types of conversations, especially parents of kids, and they're trying to figure out what does this look like?
Yep.
What is my kid doing right or wrong? Because these intangibles are things that literally have nothing to do about a row of cones, a ball, and a stopwatch.
It's true, but I'm also going to bring up another point too, because it's one of those things you go watch kids' games and you hear parents say all the things, right? Send it, kick it,
boot it, bash it. No.
And here I'm bringing it up because I've talked about this with some of the girls on my Tuesday night team, and they're like, "Oh, if you could bring this up."
Yeah,
because it's my coaching wisdom is even as you're younger, you're with younger players, there's a purpose behind our words. It's not always just kick it. Maybe what are you doing? You pass it, you dribble it, you cross it, you shoot it. We don't need to hear kick it. And it kind of, the more they hear it, I think maybe the more it helps it click. So
I once got so mad on a team
wisdom.
snap thing. I was like, please stop saying boot it, bash it, bomb it. Those are not soccer terms. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off. I stopped coaching
kids.
and I texted the team.
Yes.
I was like, stop it.
I'll take that a step further. Whenever I was coaching Beckett's premier team or I don't even remember what level it was. Oh my God, Jen. I had a parent meeting. And I had one of my days.
JB's going to need a consultation.
And I was literally like, okay, here's the deal. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Do me a favor, clap for your kids. Do not coach them. Don't say a word. Just clap. Because if you start yelling at them, you're going to undo everything I'm doing, and that's not going to help.
And here's what you know, and Laurie, I'm going to look for you to acknowledge
you
that.
up here?
You too. Well, both of I think you coach as well. Is as a coach. So when you're in the coach role, it's not hard to see when one of your players is being coached from the other sideline because their poor little heads are on
they're
a swivel.
staring at the sideline.
They're staring, and I in some of the best meaning, and I am also guilty. I've done it. So I will call myself out and I know where Harper's supposed to be there. She's not supposed to be there. But I am not in that freaking role. So I need to shut the hell up and just be like, go get it. Whatever, or nothing. You could try saying nothing. But
that's what I do.
Go for it.
Yeah,
you and JB and Zach just leave.
Have you guys have seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, right? You know the movie.
Yes,
No,
yeah.
I'm terrible.
See, I've seen it. Yes.
You know at the end where the black wolf comes out and he's at the top of the hill and just raises his paw.
Hey,
That's me. I just stand at the end and my kid might look at me and I'll just thumbs up.
Yo, go, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't yell ever.
But like especially,
It's hard though. I don't even have
is.
kids,
It
and I'm like,
is.
I know if I watch, friends' kids or my nieces or nephews, it's so hard. I'm like,
But
oh,
there,
boy.
I'm thinking
You're
of.
like whispering in your friends.
But I also know-
Yell this.
Yeah,
Yell this.
I'm thinking of a couple of players. So Harper's just turned 8, and she's on a really good little team, right? They're a little good 2016 team.
She's
Kicking
a
some
little wrestler,
2015
the
and a wrestler. And they're good, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm slowing my roll because they're 7 and 8 years old, but they're good.
They're so good
They're
for
very
7 and 8.
athletic. They're
Yep.
very good for 7 and 8. But
You're breaking every one of our rules right now.
what?
They're so good.
They are so
They're going
good.
to the World Cup.
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying they're very athletic.
No, go ahead.
Many of them
Go
are
ahead.
quick. Harper is also she's like the tallest on the team, so she's got height on her. Great,
what's that feel like?
but I don't know. I don't know. I think I've shrunk.
I'm still waiting.
And I sit on there, and I was sitting with the last game with Marin, my 15-year-old daughter, and she's like, "Oh my God, is this what the parent sideline sounds like?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You don't do that." I said, "Not anymore." But like, there's so many well-intentioned, but they're joysticking their players. So their players, their heads swiveling over to the coach, and the head swiveling back over to the parent. I'm like, I know, and what the parent's telling them is not necessarily wrong, but they will learn better if they're in the wrong position. The ball goes past them, and we might get scored on, but who gives a shit because they're 7 and 8? Then you joysticking them into the position. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
thank
but
you.
I mean, there's
And I have to tell myself that when I'm
Yeah.
like, shut up, stop telling Harper what
yeah. I mean, there's yes, as long as they actually are learning from it. Are they actually figuring it out and learning from it? Some players just aren't going to be there yet.
I mean, we're
Like,
not
and
even
they
at the
need that extra
offside stage
assistant.
yet. We're not in the
Oh, yeah.
offside stage
Yeah.
yet. And it sucks to
Yep.
be the lead player. You were
Yep.
up there, and then you're offside, and your team's like, damn it. Right? But you learn because you're like, I don't want to do that again, versus a parent moving, like, take
Yep.
2 steps up, you're offside.
It's not sustainable.
It
period.
isn't.
You can't do that. It's just not.
You don't
can't
have
do it.
you don't let the parents coach from the Lindenwood side?
Sure,
No,
why
you didn't.
not? Why not? I mean, I think we're all naive if we know it's happening in some extent, right? Whether it's conversations after the
Car
game
ride.
but the car ride.
I'd love to get your take because I actually asked Toll, sorry,
Yeah.
on the previous episode, Nikki, yes, that's easier, about Lindsey Horan's comments. I know you know it. You saw it.
What'd
in
you say?
socials.
We were soccer fans are not as
quote American soccer fans. Most of them aren't smart. They don't know the game. They don't understand. But it's getting better and better. In the context of what we're talking about and her extended context, do you agree with her? Do you think
I do. I do. I mean, we can always learn more, but how many fans, they only know one style or one thing, and
Well, I didn't grow up with position numbers.
No, that's a thing now.
It was
right?
not a
Yeah.
thing. Marin was like 12, and she's like, I'm a 9. I'm like,
Well-
what the hell are you talking about? Or an 8. I'm like, you're a wing mid.
Well, I think our generation and even your generation
Yes.
as well, because we're all fairly close here. The only number that ever really mattered was number 1 was the goal. 2 numbers. Number 1 was the goalie,
Always.
and number 10 was your best player.
Right.
Pele. Duh.
That's it.
But even then, I don't think I grew up in any teams that even used those numbers.
None.
We didn't say
Never.
those. You just picked your number. Like, I
It
want to
was
be
like,
11.
Or it was my birthday. That's why I picked that number. I mean, that's my age. That's my number. I mean,
Everybody wanted to be 7 in my day. That was the cool number at the
7
time.
is still a pretty cool
It's
number.
pretty
to
cool.
be.
Is that you were 7?
No, I was 15. I don't know how I even had that. I
Okay.
think that's just what I was given, and I was like, okay, this is
I
it.
was 11 because Kristen Niedenbach was 10, and she was awesome. And I was like, well, I can't take 10, so I'll take the next number, double one.
Yeah. So
That's how I said it.
I mean, going back to Haran's comments, I mean, you got to hear the whole scope of it,
Yeah.
and we are getting better. But I mean, you look at soccer in this country; it's come a long way. Man, has it come a lot, even in the last 2 and 3 years. And bringing up St. Louis City, I mean, how much has that?
You're here with the city shirt on.
I love
Look at
it. I
you.
mean, it's like it's fun.
Is that,
It's starting here
is that
soon.
mandatory wear on Fridays at Worldwide?
No, but I tend to wear it pretty often, though.
So they're not going to say anything to you about
No,
it, right?
No, I haven't gotten told anything
Is, that,
yet.
is there a team store at the new offices?
No, but that would be a good idea.
Hey, I want to stay in the realm of Lindsay and U.S. women's soccer and kind of pro soccer, et cetera, and get your take on, because the 90s U.S. women were, the cat's meow and continued to be dominant for a long time. But the rest of the pack they're there.
This last World Cup was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
If-
maybe not from a St. Louis, excuse me,
Yeah.
U.S.
It's the same
winning
thing.
aspect.
It's the same thing.
Right? But I mean, it was awesome because you saw every game was pretty meaningful.
So I want to ask your opinion because obviously you love the game, you have passion for it, you've grown up with it, it's part of your life, and being a woman and a player and a coach, and you watch the highest level, our national team do what they've done, but now it's the exact opposite path of what the U.S. men are going through. As a coach, what would you address? Like how do you curb the wave or the tsunami of, hey, we're struggling a little bit. What would you do to, get back on track?
I mean, you got to remember who you are, right? I think that's a basis. Is we have to remember what the U.S. is, right? We've been mentality. We've been nobody's fitter than us.
Athletes.
Or we've been athletes. So what's the difference between that and success in the world game now, in the international game? And I think it's coming down to tactics and, the 7, the 9, the 6, understanding all of the movements on and off the ball and, the finer details. And I think that's an area in the U.S. in general, in soccer, we can improve, period.
Do you think that has to do with the coming from the youth, right, and the pathways of and
part
how
of it.
how we train the game from when they're young to, and we know that the JB has a kid who plays for City Academy, and we know on the men's side there's more options and different. The soccer tree has many more branches of where to go, whereas in the girls' side, and you probably know this from Lindenwood, you got club, your high school, and just college. And
Right.
now you've got some
You
pro.
get some more options. I mean, you think about some of the different opportunities even available.
Europe.
Yeah, Europe. I mean, what? Look at some of the countries that were really good in this last World Cup, and maybe some that were eliminated. But money's coming into the game. Pro leagues. Not just the pro leagues, but what's underneath them in order for them to be able to train and not have a full-time job on the side in order
Right.
to support themselves. So I don't think we're as maybe in bad shape as everybody may think. It's not bleak. We just have to be finer in different areas than what we were before without losing our identity.
Is it a little scary though? Because as a soccer fan and as a patriot, whatever you want to call it, I watching the Spanish women play.
Yeah, wow.
They're badass,
That was
Yeah.
and they
beautiful.
are young, and you just kind of like, oh shit, you have to assume that there's systems because for them to catch up as fast as they did, that's a
It hasn't been that long.
It's in all reality,
them.
it's been very fast.
exactly.
Right?
So it's culturally embedded. Like, do you fear like, oh my God, now okay, we had this great run, but are we going to be second fiddle for the foreseeable future? Does that
Right, and
cross
what
your mind?
I would challenge is it only the organized part of it. I mean, you think back to playing on the playground and playing out in the neighborhoods. I mean, it's in their culture. So does that play a part of it? A lot of the training, we call it training now, not just practice, because a lot of it's organized.
Yeah,
So does some
training
of that happen, the freedom happen in some of what the Spanish team you saw? Is that because of culture or what? Those are some of the questions
JB,
to
you
ask,
brought
maybe.
it up before too, just in you live and breathe it right over in Europe, and you live and breathe it. It's here. You do what I would do with my kids. Harper's pissed off because I just signed her up for CYC softball. I'm like, you're giving it a try, and she's super mad. She's like, I might die. I'm like, you're not gonna die, but it's nobody throws it that hard. You'll be fine. But we do. Playing. We put him in multi-sport, which I love. I'm not saying not to do it, but living and breathing soccer is not a part of our culture like it is other places, right?
Well, somebody the other day was talking about how here in America, right, our kids that love the game, that's all they do. And training, by the way, is just another word for higher fees. So, but they made a comment. They're like, but they're distracted by a lot of other sports things. Whereas you go to for example, the Super Bowl, right? Whether it's just debating San Francisco versus Kansas City, or talking about Mahomes, or talking about Kelsey and Tay-Tay, like other sports permeate our kids' culture, for lack of a better term. When you go to Europe and you go to soccer exclusive nations, these kids are not running around talking about the cricket finals. They're, randomly maybe Rugby World Cup. But the reality in America, we have 3-4 major sports that are constantly competing for bandwidth.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think kids playing multiple sports,
Sure.
I'm
great.
a huge advocate. I mean, that's what I grew up doing competitively, right?
However, if we're not addressing the overall culture, do we really expect to be in the top 3?
But is it only I think there's huge value in playing multiple sports. You learn different skills. It's different muscles. You watch somebody try and judge a goalkeeper punt a ball, and if they've never played in the outfield at any point in time or played baseball or even volleyball, like some of the kids cannot judge a ball being punted, right? So I don't know if it's specifically not playing multi-sports, because I'm a huge advocate of that, like I said, but in that free time, are they out in the yard, trying
What are you doing in the backyard, right? What are you doing with your friends?
We live in a very different world. So in terms of where can you go, what can you do, but I remember being a kid in the backyard, and you got to play off the garden, that raised bed in order to get the ball to bounce just right so that you could score between the two.
One of those kickboards that do it for you now.
Those types of things. Like, does that happen in some of the other countries? More frequently than it happens in the United States. Now, we're getting really philosophical here and we're solving the problems of the world, but I don't know. I would be interested if that has something to do with it.
I do think it's as simple as kind of what you just touched on. When you go to, for example, if you go to Brazil, you go to Sao Paulo, you go to any city in Brazil, they have a small amount of basketball courts, but they have 10x futsal courts. Right?
I would be okay playing on the beach all the time, too. I would be okay with that personally.
Right. Fewer volleyball nets and a lot more like soccer nets. But I think it is ultimately part of the culture. And, we're not going to change that here. No. I just don't see that happening.
We can't. That's not who we are, right? We still have to stick to what our roots are, what we are, but we need to fine-tune some of the other areas.
So let me just simplistically ask you then, how stoked are you as a ex-college player, female head coach? How stoked are you at the state of women's soccer today with NWSL?
I think it's awesome. I think it's cool. All the opportunities that are out there now, it's awesome. And I think it's going to continue to grow. And that's what it's about, But you don't have that without having the days of having the, players that came through that had, shoes that were only men's sizes and uniforms that were hand-me-down from the men's team. So those things don't all progress and happen unless you have the people that laid that out.
Yeah,
years
I
ago.
think I just saw an article somewhere, probably Instagram, who knows, but our article on studies now finally not only do we finally have female crash test dummies for automobiles, but we finally looking at how cleats are. Like, I think I said to Nikki Thole, like, how many men would know their size in women's shoes? Nobody. But I know 6'6.5" is probably a little bit big, and men's size I could probably fit into because it was the only thing you could get.
It was the only option.
There were no sections.
Yeah.
And then for a while, even when they made sections, I'm like, are these really different? Are you just like calling it a women's size? But that the feet are shaped differently. The women's feet are typically a little bit narrower, and there's the way the ligaments and the muscles work in the female body. Like, there's a whole, if there's a growth industry to be in, I would be in the supporting the athletic side of girls and women, because there's a lot yet, I think, undiscovered, right?
There. Yeah, a lot
Well,
of
why
opportunity.
wouldn't shoe companies just put numbers on them? So if I'm a 10 and you are an 8, instead of an M10 and
Well, that's what I'm
W.
pretty sure what they did is probably just
But
say,
you know
okay.
what I'm saying? Like
Well, then if you look in some of them, I mean, it's got European sizing different than American
Yeah.
sizing.
yeah, and those guys
So,
are weird.
And,
I mean, we're the one that chose
but then if you think about when they test,
the
there's-
metric
there's
system, isn't
always
that?
Right.
there's always testing done, right? On any piece of equipment, there's testing done. It's typically done on male models. So when you do that, and I don't know how, like, at what point do we start varying when you're a boy, girl, man, woman, but I'm not just smaller in shoe size than my husband. My foot is designed a bit differently.
Right.
Now it's flatter and wider because of all the years of playing in cleats.
Yeah.
But like, just looking at the way the equipment supports the body and is designed for the body, like you said, like, just how nice is it to go to the St. Louis City SC store? I've been there, and I could go to not just a small men's shirt, but actually there's a woman's cut, because we are made a little bit differently.
Yep. And I mean, it's all progressive. I mean,
Wait,
I don't know
wait,
how
what are you
how did we
talking
get
about?
on this topic?
Curves,
Either. Yeah.
curves, baby.
Well, we purposely
We're
have
not
no
just tiny
guardrails.
men.
I was like, we're talking about, well, we got way, sorry, squirrel. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
right?
But the great point of I specifically, my daughters still don't believe me, so I'm so glad you said it. They're like, you did not really have hand-me-downs. I'm like, oh, yes, we did. My Lindenwood team went to the national tournament, and we had the men's uniforms hand-me-downs. Thank you
Wow.
very much.
Wow.
And I got my ankle injury because we had to practice on the shit practice field, where now there's probably a building. But while the football team that wasn't going anywhere got the turf field.
Yeah.
Which the old turf, what did Jen Houston described it as, concrete with some green stuff painted on it.
That's how I used to reference a lot of, the old stuff down at Soccer Park
Soccer
too.
parks,
I mean,
2
it
and
was,
3.
it was,
Fields 2 and 3.
concrete painted green, but
Yeah, it was
and we
awesome,
wonder
though.
why people have bad hips and have had knee replaced, at this point.
My
Yeah, I have
my
no idea what
DNA
you're
is on
talking-
there.
I have
My
no
skin's
idea what
gone.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Would you mind handing me my crutches?
Yeah.
So what's is soccer completely out of your future, or when are you back in?
What am I back in?
Yeah, I mean,
She's still
coaching-
playing.
Coaching
I mean,
never goes away.
Not gone.
Well, coaching's in you, right? One way or another. One of my favorite parts of my job currently is the ability to be able to coach and provide feedback. And sometimes I do it and they probably don't want it, but it's in you. I really love not having anything in the evenings or things on the weekends or having to travel or live out of a hotel. So never say never. I usually get a phone call from a few different people, once a year. Hey, are you ready? And I'm like, well, I'm good. But
Well, it
you
never
never
leaves
know.
you.
You never know. It never really leaves you. I still love it. Yeah.
Real quick, so you're not that far out, and you coached a lot of people, and you played. Advice, young people, 15-year-olds. That's specific to me. On whether you're on the path of looking at college, or you're a little bitty and your parents are super excited because you're so good right now. Word of wisdom for your
Have fun.
kids.
I mean,
for the-
make sure
for the
they're having
parents.
fun. Number one. I mean, if you're not having fun, then it's going to turn into a job and feel like a job, and you're just not going to get out of it what you need. And a lot of times, you do anything, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And if you're having fun, it's way easier to do things that you think are fun and that you like, than feeling like you have to do it. So
Yeah, are you listening, Jen?
I am
Pretty-
listening. I
pretty
am
simple.
listening. I'll be quieter on the
You
side.
gotta chill it out a little bit.
but that's not just soccer. That's in anything in life, right?
She'd just get in position. I wouldn't have to say anything.
You could not say anything. Laurie, this has been a pleasure.
well,
Really-
thanks for having me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you know.
Ski.
Yes.
Yeah, ski. Yeah.
So you go, but I got to close with this. You go from Mehlville near civilization and culture. Why'd you go to the other side of the river?
GB.
I got tired of driving 270 is what the problem was to go to St. Charles, and now I'm on the west side,
Oh yeah, that's the far west side. I got you.
Yeah.
But hey, it's been a pleasure.
But
No, thanks for having
probably
me.
back in the day you did a Granite City tournament. I'm sure you did.
Oh,
we all did, JB. We were there,
I think I
buddy.
had
We were with you.
the cinders from that stupid track in my feet, probably still from having.
We're very intentional in Granite City. Leave our mark.
Absolutely. The Granite City tournament.
That's right.
I love it. Well, thank you for
Thank you.
joining us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jen, thank you. Mellow Mushroom, thank you. Jen, real quick, pop those new socials. What you got?
I made it easy. At Soccer Mom Sunday. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're there. Yay!
Follow it, and we'll put the Venmo QR on there shortly.
Please
Tip us.
tip
Jen
us
needs
with
more ciders.
and pizza.
See you next time. Thank you.